have with me here today Joshua Chairs, who is the director of Phantom Detectives. So I have a few questions for you, Joshua. You and your team are conducting an investigation today at a residential home here in Norwood, Pennsylvania. So my first question I want to ask you is, what do you and your team expect to find today while conducting this investigation?
We are expecting to validate the results that our client Ashton had revealed to us basically prior to the investigation. There have numerous reports of shadows, orbs basically coming by. Also, the silhouette of an older woman has been seen on basically his girlfriend's bed, as well as the basement portion basically where the husband has been seen who had passed away in the house. So we're expecting to validate the results of what basically Ashton has revealed to us prior to the investigation, and to be able to document that as well as we can.
Okay, that's excellent. So it brings me to my next question. Did you have any prior evidence of any signs of any ghostly activity before you started this investigation?
Oh yes, absolutely. Like from the 7 prior investigations that we have done, basically at the Sanderson Museum, at the Millivan Selma, at basically the Selma Mansion, at basically the White Chimneys, we have numerous results that are available on our website, phantomdetectives.org, where basically people can see all the things that we have captured up to this point in time.
Okay, well, Joshua, what I actually want to know, though, specifically referring to this house, this resident, has any evidence been brought to you?
Oh yes.
Through pictures, video,
yes.
What have you? What kind of evidence has been brought to you
yes.
before you started the investigation?
Before we started the investigation, the evidence basically that was brought to us basically was brought to us by Ashton, and Ashton went ahead and showed us, like our director of client relations, Rick, did an interview with him, and we also basically was able to validate his responses through many orbs, many shadows that were seen. The silhouette of an older woman. We also saw many other basically different parts of the house. Her brother also, his brother-in-law also reported seeing different figures, hearing things, footsteps in different parts of the house as well. So the client basically has concluded that this house is very active from top to bottom, and this couple is very prominent here that passed away.
Wow, that's definitely fantastic. So this brings me to my final question for you, Joshua. What equipment will you be using to capture any paranormal activity?
Well, during this investigation, we're going to be using EMF meters to be able to take EMF sweeps throughout the house. So that way we can pick up electromagnetic fields. We'll be using voice recorders when doing phantom time, asking questions, so that way anything that intelligent that responds on the voice recorders, we'll be able to do that. We will also be using a ghost box hooked up to a portal box, which will be able to scan the AM and FM stations to try to pick up spirit voices in different parts of the house. We'll be using a thermal camera, which takes hot and cold signatures, and we might be able to grab some ghostly phenomena with the thermal camera. And we will also be using the digital dowsing and the new SLS camera that we had acquired from our previous team member. So we'll be using the thermal cameras as well. And we also might be using the Paranology's gyroscope, which basically like a rotating phone dial where the spirits can use static electricity to generate words and responses.
Okay, hey Joshua, thank you for answering those questions, and I just want to leave you with hope you and your team have a great investigation today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I have here with me today Melissa, who is our psychic medium for Phantom Detectives. I'd like to ask you a few questions, if I may.
Sure.
Okay. Number 1, do you physically see spirits during your investigations? And if not, how do you see, hear, and sense them to understand what messages you are receiving?
Well, 9 times out of 10, I feel that it's safe to say that psychic mediums do not physically see spirits with their eyes. A lot of times what you receive is all internal. So just like we have our outer senses, our sense of hearing and taste and your sight, you have internal senses as well. And they're the senses that you use when you're picking up messages from spirits, whether you're seeing them in your mind's eye. You might internally hear something they are telling you you may get a gut feeling of, who they were as a person. Are they happy to see us? Are they happy that we're here? Are they not? What messages are they giving us? So in a nutshell, what you receive is all internal. It isn't necessarily external. And one of my teachers, Cindy Kaza, says it perfectly. She says, when you receive messages from Spirit, it is like playing a game of Pictionary, charades, and telephone. It is like a bunch of puzzle pieces coming together. So we as mediums take that information and we put that all together in order to receive accurate messages. And then the beautiful thing is, as an investigator and having an investigation team, we can verify that with our equipment. So if I am picking up on a woman in a location and I'm receiving messages from this woman, we may be able to get an EVP recording of a woman's voice to verify what what the messages that I'm receiving from this person. So everything that I receive is actually internal, and it's up to me to put those puzzle pieces together to give that evidence.
Okay, well, that's a great answer. Okay, so I have another question for you, Melissa. Is it possible for you to pick up messages by touching objects during an investigation?
Absolutely. The term for that is actually called psychometry. So by touching an object, each object has a story, especially if it belonged to the person who lived in that location. You know, if a chair, a piece of jewelry, something, if it belonged to them, you can physically touch that object and receive information. You may get messages, you may see what they look like. You may see if this particular object was passed down to them, if it has some kind of sentimental value. You may get images of landscapes. A lot of these objects, they tell a story. So again, as a psychic medium, it is up to me to take all of that information and put that story together and therefore deliver that evidence. So yes, it is absolutely possible to go around and touch furniture, whatever it may be, and to receive information that way.
Wow, that's great. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So my final question for you is, are you able to pick up messages before you arrive at an investigation?
Absolutely. The number one thing for me is to never, ever, ever research a location that we are planning to investigate. It has to be all authentic. So at the very most, I may be able to just see a picture of the location and start tuning into pieces of information, pieces of evidence there. The term for that is actually called remote viewing. You may be able to pick up who was connected to that location, whether a former president has stayed at a location there, whatever it may be. So remote viewing is very similar to psychometry, in my opinion, because again, each place has a story, and you can certainly maybe projecting yourself, if that's the right way to describe it. You certainly can, because what it comes down to is that energy is not limited by time or space. It really is not. So I don't physically have to be at a location to start receiving information. And later on, what we do is I take what I receive and see if it can be verified with the history of whatever it may be, whether it's a museum, if we're in a residential home.
Wow, yeah, definitely.
So, yeah.
Well, hey, listen, thank you for those amazing answers, and thank you for letting me conduct this interview. And I just want to say, hey, best of luck to your investigation today, and hope you guys all come out with some great, compelling evidence.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you. Awesome.
And hit the stop button. I got with me here the U.S. Ambassador to the Italian UFO Federation, FUI. I also got the founder and Director of Investigations for Extraterrestrial Research Center and our Director of Client Relations / Lead Investigator / Tech Manager, Rick Warner, with us today. We're conducting an investigation of a client's home in Norwood, Pennsylvania. And Rick, Mr. Warner, the first question I have for you is, what are you expecting out of today's investigation?
Well, today, there's actually a lot of things. Before we even started this investigation, we had, evidence that was submitted to us, video evidence. There's a gentleman and his wife that own the house here that have been staying here for a while, and basically they've been experiencing different paranormal activity in the house. So the guy here that lives at the house decided that he would set up some video cameras and recorders and start recording, see what kind of evidence that could be picked up. And there's actually been some stuff that's been submitted to us, both to myself and also Melissa, who is our a paranormal medium, or I'm sorry, our psychic medium. And we looked through some of the footage and shared it amongst us, and we found very compelling evidence of ghostly activity that's taking place. So we're here today. We're coming with our, not just our devices that we have. We actually have quite a bit of paranormal equipment to capture any spiritual activity. But we're also coming in with our experience, our knowledge, places that we've been, places that we investigated. So yeah, I think we're going to come up with a lot of great and compelling evidence of ghostly activity. Definitely looking forward to it.
And do you feel with the past investigations that we've done, will we be able to tie those into the investigation that you're doing tonight? And do you feel that this evidence will be able to help us validate the client's response?
Yeah, I think definitely so. I mean, each investigation is different, and you're always learning new things from previous investigations. So, the more you do this, the more things you learn, that kind of stuff. And, there's a lot of fancy gadgets out there, a lot of, for doing conducting paranormal investigations compared to the old days when it was just a little, camera and maybe a small, a little tape recorder that put a little micro tape in. Now we have digital recorders and dowsing rods, and we have SLS, we have thermal cameras. So we have a lot more tools at our disposal. But, we take the experiences we learned from past investigations, and we see, moving forward, how could we take the knowledge we learned previously and use that in future investigations?
Exactly. And my final question is, do you feel that your background as a certified UFO, a long-time MUFON member, do you think that will be able to help you tonight on tonight's investigation with some of the techniques and things and quantitative methods you learned from MUFON?
Absolutely. And it's interesting that you mentioned that, because coming from a MUFON background as a certified field investigator, I've had the opportunity to conduct interviews with clients, and you can learn a lot by conducting an interview and asking the client questions and stuff. Sometimes it helps you validate credibility. And so, as an investigator, it's not your job to come in and when you do an interview with a client or a potential client, you don't want to just agree with everything that they're saying or they're seeing. And sometimes the mind can play tricks on you, like maybe you see a certain shadow and you think that maybe that's a ghost, and maybe it wasn't a ghost. Maybe that shadow was caused by something and not spiritual activity. So, you have to be very careful about, what you're agreeing to, but rather, when you conduct the interview with the client, ask questions, let them tell you their story, okay? And try to find out any history of the home, any, maybe who's lived there in the past, that sort of thing, and use that knowledge and what you find into coming into the investigation before you start.
I agree. And what is the last question for you is basically, do you feel basically that this investigation is going to be very active tonight?
Yes, it has. I will tell you this, just getting started today, we set it up some of our equipment and things started going off like crazy. So yeah, I have no doubt we've already picked up some activity, and I feel that we're just getting on the way here, and we're going to pick up a lot more spiritual activity. We're going to be doing our EVP sessions and running our spirit box and things like that. So yeah, I'm very confident that we will continue to find more compelling evidence of spiritual activity in the home.
We'd like to thank you, Mr. Warner, for your time and your graciousness, and we look forward to revealing the results of this investigation on our website, phantomdetectives.org, erc2explore.com, and darkmatternews.com.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And